Добрый день всем, меня зовут Ryan Chilcote.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Chilcote. I spent many years in Moscow at the CNN bureau, and then I covered Russia for Bloomberg. My history, I have more than 30-year association with Russia, and today would like to talk about our brave new green world, green priorities, infrastructure upgrade and modernization. It's all very important given the global warming. We hope solutions would be found in the financial area, at least partially. There's a lot of ground to cover. We'll have 4 speakers. 2 of them are present here. Just a second, I will introduce you, and 2 speakers are joining us online. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they could not make it in person. We'll start here. We'll start with you, Maria Andreevna, Deputy Head of the Mayor's Office. I would like to start with the following. Today, Moscow has placed green bonds quite successfully. You're the first region, if I'm not mistaken, the first Russian region that placed green bonds. What are you going to spend the proceeds on? What is next? Is it the beginning of the trend, or? Thank you. Thank you for your question. I would like to welcome foreign participants from the bottom of my heart. It's a pleasure to be here to participate in this important debate. I would like to share with you our experience of green bond placement, which we had in May. We placed 70 billion rubles worth of bonds at the rate of below 10, 12 basis points below market expectation. We believe that the green financing tools, instruments have strong potential. The sustainable financing, green financing market in Russia hopefully will develop, will grow. We're very pleased that we have contributed to its development. Our bonds comply with international standards, ICMA. We are put on the list of sustainable instruments of that association. We are also been recognized as a green instrument by the VEB, and our bonds are traded in the green finance section of MySex. All proceeds will be directed at 2 projects, green projects in the transportation area, procurement of e-buses. As you might know, since 2021, Moscow has discontinued procurements of buses, and we are now buying only e-buses. And the second project is the construction of big metro circle rail transport development. We were very careful in our selection process. You're right, Moscow was the first Russian region that placed green bonds. We wanted this instrument to be green in good faith under all international classifications, under all international standards, so that there would be no doubt about its green nature. So we've selected our projects very carefully. And these are the areas which, according to all requirements, they're green. Nobody's challenging their greenness. And I think these projects would be implemented before too long, according to international standards. Throughout the bond life cycle, we'll be publishing reports showing the effect of the investments, green investments. We believe that green financing has very strong prospects in Russia, particularly for Russian regions. If we look at the budget structure, all we do basically is either social sphere or green projects when regions develop ecological transport, spend money on the sewage system, improving air quality. So if the Russian regions, which have fairly large borrowing plans, if they can raise more funds through green financing, that would allow them to implement more projects in the infrastructure, social area that are generally aimed at improving life standards and improving the sustainability of the systems. So very briefly about our experience. If you have any slides or a presentation, do you have to show us? Yes, I have a few brief slides since I couldn't open them. Yes, exactly. So these are the slides. That's what I was talking about. Our bonds are in line with international standards that they trade on MISEX. So the procurement of 100 e-buses and the construction of a big metro circle line. You see the main numbers here, also on environmental effects. Thank you. That's it? Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Our next speaker is Samak Vakba. Samak is Director for Global Risks and Sustainability at World Bank. Samak, I'll be speaking Russian as we are in Russia and our audience is primarily Russian speaking. The question I wanted to ask you, clearly Moscow has successfully placed its first green bond issuance, and the trend is now going across the globe. It's international. I heard that in the UK they're planning to do similar in summer. Putin said that 16 countries, Russia's planning to do 16 countries, and World Bank has issued $20 billion worth of green bonds. You've already issued that. Could you speak briefly about your experience? What can you advise or recommend to Moscow, other regions? What would you recommend them to do? What would you advise them based on your experience?
Thank you, Ryan, and good morning from Washington, and good afternoon to all of you in Moscow. Yeah. Sorry, I have a bit of a technical difficulty. I'm listening to the presentation in Russian, so just give me 1 second to switch channel.
Yeah, you can choose the English channel. Вы можете выбрать английский.
Thank you. No, it's been a challenging morning. We have a power outage over here, so I'm trying to do everything on a cell phone. Okay, still.
It's just another example of why we need more green energy. It's just another example. Yeah. How are things now?
Much better. I just managed to switch channel. Sorry for my logistics. So, as you've asked, Ryan, I mean, the World Bank has pioneered the first green bond in 2008, and the institution created the blueprint for today's green bond market. Obviously, at the global level, you know, over $1 trillion of green bonds have been issued. At the World Bank, we've sold close to 16 billion to date in 23 currencies and 185 plus bond issuances. Now, green bonds have the same terms and credit and financial risk as the other bonds. What separates green bonds from a conventional bond is the use of proceeds and the impact reporting pledge. So it basically shows that the issuer intends to use an equivalent amount of the funds raised for a specific purpose. So in this case, it's raising funds for specific projects with climate mitigation and adaptation background. which make the instrument very well suited for supporting sustainability in urban investment, in cities and in regions. And of course, a growing number of corporations and national and subnational governments have started issuing green bonds, and it's great to hear of the Moscow issuance. At the World Bank, we also support, mainly countries in this case, for the issuance of green bonds, and most recently, support to Malaysia on a green sukuk bond, and Egypt. And in fact, we do have in our Treasury Department an active advisory program that facilitates sovereign and also sub-sovereign bond transactions, and which provides the technical assistance that is needed. Now, as the World Bank, we are committed to climate action, and this also extends towards the issuance of what we call the Sustainable Development Bonds. And these support the financing of a mix of projects that address both climate action, but also other social challenges. And for us, the institution is putting an important emphasis on mainstreaming climate consideration in all our investments. So, the issuance of our Sustainable Development Bonds allows us to actively engage with investors, and we raise awareness for the SDGs, for the development challenges, using our World Bank finance projects as an example. And one of our recent issuances focused on the development outcomes that we do for sustainable cities. Now, in the developing world, the situation is a little bit different, especially at subnational level. So from what we know, there's a limited number of cities in developing countries, including Johannesburg, Cape Town, Mexico City, Ghaziabad in India, have issued green bonds. And, they really don't have that much of a pricing advantage associated to them, in the sense that they do not appear to be particularly cheaper than regular bonds. But they're very important, of course, in charting the way towards the importance of sustainable development pathways, towards enhancing the emphasis on climate finance. Now, of course, if you want to proceed to issue a green bond, you need, as a city or as a region, to have the foundations to be able to issue a regular bond. And I think this is the light that I want to shed a little bit more of, that gives you an idea of the situation in developing countries. Now, of the 500 largest cities that the World Bank works with, only 90 cities, which is 18%, have been deemed creditworthy, either on domestic or on international capital markets. Of those 90 cities that are creditworthy, only 32 have ever issued a bond, and they're in 13 countries. So it means 32 is 6% of the total. It means that only 6% of the countries of the cities that we work with have ever issued a regular bond. And this, if anything, sheds the light on the fundamentals of municipal finance that need enhancement, that are a little bit challenged. So you look at the financing gap. The financing gap in terms of resilient climate-smart infrastructure across the globe is in the trillions of dollars. The report, the 2015 report, the State of the City's Climate Finance report by CCFLA, has indicated that we're talking of a finance gap anywhere between $4.5 to $5.4 trillion per annum. Now, you compare this to official development assistance, which is something like $150 billion per annum, there's a major gap. So you need to turn to cities and look, what are their revenues? What is their financial situation? Now, many of them have very limited own source revenues, limited property taxation systems, ability to impose fees, and oftentimes decentralization status will not allow them even to issue these because of ambiguous regulatory framework. So this means that we have to focus first on strengthening cities and regions, municipal finances, and own source revenue generations to give them the fundamentals to be able to proceed towards creditworthiness. We also have to help them rationalize their expenditures, help them better manage their assets, and help them also attract private investment in the form of PPPs, and work with them painstakingly to put them on a pathway for creditworthiness. We do that. We have an initiative at the World Bank called the City Creditworthiness Initiative, but there's no magic wand. This is painstaking work. It takes years to be able to take a city from, helping them strengthen, putting their books in place, having, transparent bookkeeping, good financial management, enhancement of own source revenues, so that you can take them all the way to the state of creditworthiness and being able to borrow both, on general obligation bonds, but also to proceed towards, green bonds. So I just wanted to say that, so that, our those listening to us would not think that this is something that can happen overnight. It takes a lot of work, and hats off really for Moscow for having gone on that very important pathway to enhance climate action. Thank you, and back to you, Ryan.
Спасибо большое вам, Самых.
Thank you so much, Samech. I would like now to get Jose Antonio Oniviela Garcia connected, get him into our talk. Jose Antonio is Director of Smart Cities at Microsoft. As far as I understand, you're joining us from Madrid or from Spain. Is it true?
That's true. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic.
I wanted to ask you the following. In the context of the pandemic, a lot of funds are being invested into green technologies. It's a major portion of state funding and investor money are going into green technologies now. Clearly, there's a lot of talk about verification, green bonds, how to verify. You're from Microsoft. What kind of role can you play in this process?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting event. Okay. I prepared 2 slides to answer that question. It is crucial to harness data. The data is the fuel of this recovery, and the intelligence is the engine is to happen. No? And we have now at all the cities done in this specific situation where they are. They need to reboot the city. They need to rethink the processes, the space where they work, and this is something like pressing this red boot of rebooting everything. And they need to consider that right after the COVID, they will face restrictions. And after that, we need to be prepared for the climate change. And this is something they need to tackle on right now. Otherwise, the consequences of the global warming will be even worse than those from the pandemic. So, in the word of the city of Amsterdam, city donors, they need to protect all the people not to fall into the middle hole of inequity and inequality. Why?
Качество звука очень плохое, поэтому перевод практически невозможен.
Sorry? Can you hear me?
Да, вас слышно.
Yes, we can hear you, but the quality of connection is not very good.
Да.
Okay, I'm stop sharing. So
yeah, there you go.
I'm stop sharing, so I can answer that question without any slide. Okay.
Хорошо. Very good. Please.
Okay.
We hear you perfectly.
So I was trying to explain that the recovery can take longer or shorter, but the recovery will be green. All these cities are not trying to reshape the environment. Okay. because I'm listening to your translation and I'm distracted. Sorry about that. So all the cities are now.
Jose Antonio, I have an idea. You need to switch. If you just switch to the English language channel on your, you can choose the English
I have done this.
channel.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
Now I have taken the translator off.
Yeah.
And,
is that working out for you?
Sorry about that. Okay. So I was trying to explain that all the cities are now rethinking everything they do, all the processes. They are reevaluating the spaces, reshaping the city, and also all the measures and all the activities that are putting in place must be green, because they need to tackle on this big problem of global warming. Otherwise, this will have worse consequences than the pandemic. Okay, so to make this happen, the Amsterdam city has proposed the city green donut. The idea is that we need to protect our citizens not to fall into the middle hole of inequity and inequality, while protecting the exterior. So we can do whatever we want inside this green donut, okay? Helping and protecting our families and our businesses, while not impacting, do not overshooting our planet or the environment. So we need to achieve sustainability from the social and economic point of view, but also the environmental sustainability point of view. So these three main components. To make this happen, all the big funds, for example, here in Europe, the Green Deal from the European Union, are exactly pointing to these areas, no? To try to provoke specific shifts in the way we are using technology and we are using our infrastructures to make them greener. With two main pillars. One is to achieve the carbon neutrality in our cities and regions, and second is to make the way we work a circular way, the circular economy, the reducing and recycling everything we do, and obtaining a rational way to use the matter of our planet, okay? All those shifts are making a reduction on CO2. There are many actions we can do in the transportation, in the way we are using energy, buildings, in the use of the public spaces. I know there are many of these activities already in place by many local Moscow actors, like your oil companies and refineries. They are already working on these specific topics, and very, very important is urban mobility. All the urban mobility in our cities is going to be decarbonized, is going to be electrified, okay? So we need to generate our own energy in our cities, mainly to feed our urban mobility, and then reducing down to zero the emissions associated to that. We need to help our citizens to do exactly the same with their private buildings and also with the way they are using matter. So a lot of things to do. The recovery, again, will be absolutely green, and technology is helping us to make this happen. Data is the fuel. We need data to know what's going on, to know what to do, to know which areas we can impact. And artificial intelligence is the engine that is transforming all this data into insight, okay? So these information technologies are definitely the way to afford this transformation. Okay.
Jose Antonio, спасибо огромное.
Thank you very much. Please do not go away. Mr. Sameh, if you're still here, please stay here too. There's one speaker left, Mr. Yerochin. I think you could speak about the conclusions that you can draw. You are director of the environmental program of Moscow oil refinery plant. one question: Why do you do recycling? Why are you engaged in it? Because you want to attract investors, or what was the driving force behind the process? Good afternoon. Well, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to you for giving me an opportunity to speak at the forum. I hope that my presentation will be shown on the screen, and before it is done, I would like to first of all tell you that the green technologies and the green approaches which are used in Moscow have been there for more than 10 years. Of course, for us, the most important thing was not to attract investors, but the main goal was to keep and to stay in the capital, to remain a plant in the capital, to stay needed. So the question was, you either change or you have to go out of Moscow. Right. Over the last 15 years, the legislation and the approach of the Moscow city to the infrastructure and industrial facility changed. So the task was to become greener. That was the task we faced. Our plant is located in the capital, and of course it's an industrial facility which provides various kind of fuel to the city. Actually, 1/3 of the fuel is provided by our plant, and our fuel has the E5 class. It is maximum environmentally friendly for the internal combustion engines. We are also one of the largest taxpayers. We provide a lot of jobs for the inhabitants of the city. And gas motor fuel is what public transportation uses, as well as household gas. Gas is also produced at our plant. So basically, we produce more than 15 types of fuel. Within the framework of green technology introduction, which the previous speaker covered, the introduction of digital technologies is very important. I agree with you that artificial intelligence element is very important. Big data is also needed to ensure safe and resilient work of all the industrial facilities. They're quite complicated from the point of view of management, because there are a lot of various parameters that you have to not only follow to ensure safe operation, but also you have to know how to forecast it and how to avoid any irregularities at work. I have already told you that green technologies we are using is something we have for 10 years. The green modernization and reconstruction of the plant, which started within the framework of Gazprom Neft company, started back in 2010. So now I can tell you that more than 250 billion rubles are invested. There were 2 phases of plant reconstruction. We plan that till 2025, the accumulated investment will be about 350 billion rubles. Over the last 10 years, so from the beginning of the reconstruction, the following results were achieved. You can see them on the slide. It's very important that the plant ensures not only ecologically safe operation, but it also produces things and products which have minimum impact on the environment. Let me tell you a few words about the program we had in Moscow in 2013. That is the time when we shifted to Euro 5 fuel. And we are pioneers here. We started to produce Euro 5 fuel back in 2013. The data demonstrates that the implementation of infrastructural programs of the city of Moscow and maximum shift to electric transportation and eco-friendly means of transportation allowed to decrease by 35% the emissions to the air, despite the fact that the number of buses and cars on the streets increased by more than 1/3. 1/3 of million cars. In addition to that, speaking about our achievements, I can tell you that last year we started a very eco-friendly and efficient project. It was called Euro Plus, and it is a combined complex which gave us an opportunity to decommission 5 old facilities and to move to green technologies. We managed to decrease by 11% the impact on the air, and the efficiency, the energy efficiency of the facility increased by 40%. We also managed to increase the output of products that are crucially important for our region. I've already told you about our digital technologies. I'm not going to dwell on that. It's significantly important that within the framework of our reconstruction program, we think not only about the pollution of the air, and of course air is the most sensitive component of environment, but we also think about the water reservoir. Within the framework of our reconstruction, we have created a full complex of water treatment. If you speak about the final results, I can tell you that we used cutting-edge technologies to recycle water, 4 million cubic meters of water per year. That allows us to diminish negative impact not only on the air but also on the water reservoirs. That is very important, and it speaks again about the eco-friendliness of the project. Here you can see the technological or production flow. I'm not going to speak about it in detail. I just want to underline once again that we used the latest and the best technologies in water treatment. We had a closed cycle flow without any emissions to the air, and everything was implemented at our water treatment facilities. Now, foreseeing your question, I would like to underline that the realization of all green technologies and introduction of green policy is not only a declaration, which is simply given. We try to prove it with our actual actions, with the system of monitoring, starting with the monitoring of online monitoring and provision of information to the state authorities and ending with the control of the air in the residential areas located around our plant. In addition to that, at our plant, we are implementing a program called Open Plant. It's a program when people can visit the plant and they not only hear the figures or hear the stories, they can also go to the plant, visit it, have a look at it with their own eyes, check how it changed the smell and touch. More than 1,000 people annually visit our plant. Yes, of course, within the framework of the pandemics, the figures decreased, but I hope that we will overcome pandemics and our visiting program will continue. We all hope for the best, and I have no doubt that it will happen. Maria, I have a question to you. Maria, we have heard it from Samek that the situation with the green bond issue is different around the globe. As far as I understand, that RGD, Rosatom, Cibor issued not bonds, but credits related to sustainable development. So could you please tell us about the problems you face here in Russia? What are the specific features of green financing here in Russia? Ryan, I think that the key problem is that the Russian market of sustainable financing is being formed right now. When we issued the green bonds, we didn't have the necessary regulation that would allow the regions of Russia, for example, to issue such green instruments. First of all, because we have the budget rule, the unity of cash desk, and we cannot track the money attracted from the date when they were attracted to the date when they were moved, when they were actually used for the project, and that is a limitation. Yes, that limits the activity, of course, but we check the international standards. because we declared certain amounts of money that will be used for the implementation of the green projects, and without any tracking, we can still report that this and that amount of money was spent for green transportation projects. Russian taxonomy of green projects is prepared by the Ministry of Economic Development together with WebRF. The federal colleagues are about to approve the necessary regulation. However, in addition to the regulation, we still lack the class of investors who are interested in the instruments of sustainable development, specifically the instruments of green financing. So together with the development of regulations, my colleagues at the federal level develop the means of support to support the investors and to support the emittents that will issue corresponding papers. And maybe there will be a package with tax benefits or any other means of support. We count on it, and we hope that if it is introduced even temporarily, we will have a class of issuers and investors. Well, it's a bit controversial moment because if you, for example, do not have Russian investors in this class, then you know that this class is growing abroad. As far as I know, Central Bank has issued a report where they spoke about the potential of Russian companies. They can lose investors because they are brown or they are black. Right, I understand what you mean. At the financial European markets, there is a big demand for such instruments, and the demand is even higher than the supply. However, if we speak about the green bonds here, we see that there are certain investors coming from abroad. The share is the same as for classical bonds, and the green bonds didn't allow to attract additional foreign investors. Now we are working on the fact that the next issue of bonds would attract more European investors who have demand for such instruments. Have you already announced it? Have you already announced any plans about the amount of green bonds and so on? The total amount is already approved in the budget for the next 3 years, but the dates of the next issue is not announced yet. We check the situation in the market, and we still think how to bring the international investors here. Is the market situation difficult now? Yes, it's difficult because the rates are volatile. You know, the central bank has already increased the key rate, and in July we are going to have an increase of the rate once again. So we want to have a more friendly period when there will not be expectation of the growth of the key rate. Right, and now, Alexander, I would like to attract you to our discussion. Are you here? Because we are talking about financial issues right now. Right, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment what you heard from Mayor's office, from Maria. Can you comment on that, please?
Ryan, this question was addressed to me?
Yeah. That's correct. У вас была возможность послушать Марию Андреевну?
Did you have a chance to hear what Maria Andreevna was saying just now?
Yes, I had the chance to hear.
Я хотел вам дать возможность прокомментировать.
So I wanted to ask you to comment on what she was saying.
Sorry, again, I'm listening to myself in an echo.
Oh, okay. Perhaps I'll try in English. I wanted to just give you an opportunity to comment on what she was talking about.
Yes. So what I wanted to say basically is definitely there are several challenges, especially when you're trying to be a trendsetter, or trying to help set a market when you're providing some of the first issuances, and there's lots of challenges in terms of maybe certain ambiguities in the regulatory market, maybe an issue related to timing, etc. And I think for this purpose that I wanted to share a couple of insights on the subject of our conversation. I mean, again, we're talking about green bonds, but what we are really talking about is instruments for the financing of sustainable development, sustainable urban development, and sustainable infrastructure. And two particular tools in cities that are well managed, as they still build their track record towards going towards the issuance of bonds and green bonds, are basically, one is what you call regulations for revenue, and the other is what you call land value capture. So land value capture, basically, it's the notion of when a government undertakes a planning decision or an infrastructure financing decision that creates value for the private sector, for developers, for property owners, it is in its rights to recoup part of that valorization in land value in the form of land value, what you call land value capture. So either you recoup it ex post, obviously that's property taxes is the most basic system, provided you update the rates regularly, but otherwise you can recoup it in the form of, sale of development rights, etc., or you can recoup it afterwards in what you call betterment levies. So for instance, in Colombia, I mean, the city of Bogota and other cities in Colombia financed important urban infrastructure by charging the users for the accrued or a portion of the accrued benefit from the valorization in land resulting from that infrastructure. The other approach is, in a sense, a form of sale of development rights. So again, if you want to finance a metro, or if you want to finance a bus rapid transit type of corridor, one of the approaches that cities would do is to say that this infrastructure supports a higher density and higher mobility of people. And because there is higher mobility, you can sell additional development rights that you auction on the market, which developers acquire. And with the proceeds of this, you can finance this mobility infrastructure. The city of Sao Paulo did that. They're called certificates of additional construction potential. So what I wanted to flag over here is, when as a city you're, going on that pathway towards creditworthiness, towards issuance of a municipal bond, towards issuance of a green bond, and as you're working your way through that process, there are instruments, such as the regulations for revenue, the land value capture, and others that can also provide support. Thank you, and back to you, Ryan.
Спасибо большое. Thank you very much. Может быть, вам коротко вы можете ответить на это?
Can you answer this question briefly, and then these tools are available to us. Maybe we will look for ways to link them to green bond issuance and to sustainable development in general. Thank you for waiting. You were talking about data. I would like to delve into this topic. A colleague was talking about how they were using oil refinery data here in Moscow. What are the trends globally nowadays to resolve this issue? What are the trends to address these issues with the help of data? What are the tools, the tools that are the trendy tools which are being used now to address this issue?
Well, one of the most common technologies that everybody is putting in place to take advantage of the data is the concept of digital twin. A digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset, for example, a refinery, or for example, a whole city. Okay, and in this 3D representation, we are adding data real time. That way, we can monitor, we can control, and we can predict what's going to happen in this specific asset in the future. That way, we can run simulations. That's super important, for example, for majors. Imagine you have a square in your city that is that supports high pollution. Then you can test the different alternatives. You can close these streets, or you can stop traffic here, or you can replace some pollution emissions here or there. And you can analyze the impact of these alternatives without disrupting the life in the city, without starting another work, without touching the physical concept. Okay, so this digital twin idea is working very well in many cities like Helsinki, Göteborg, Hamburg, Barcelona, and with this concept of digital twin, again, you can run a simulation, you can run what if scenarios, what if I do this, or what if I do that, okay? This is also coming that is very much impacting physical assets. You can evaluate how to improve the efficiency and the green operations in a refinery, in the electric grid, in the water pipe connections and sewage. So you can adapt and you can evaluate the impact of the new technologies in everything you are doing, and then improving the efficiency of the physical world by using this data in the virtual world. Okay, it goes without saying that you need to use artificial intelligence algorithm to project those virtual representation to the future, to predict what's going to happen if you do this or that. Okay, so that's the greatest value today of evaluating and activating your data to improve the way you are operating your cities.
Thank you, Yuri. Your response, the Moscow oil refinery. I fully agree with what has been said. These big data technologies, AI-based technologies, they're primarily used for forecasting, for simulation of various eventualities. Should you change your engineering process, what the effect would be. So you can make projections for the types of products you need to produce in the future, and you can also use predictive logics in terms of preventing accidents and emergencies. And it's a very powerful tool, and digital doubles, that twins that the previous speaker was speaking about, as a very helpful tool. What about digital twin tool? Have you ever considered using them? Well, all in all, digital technologies have penetrated all aspects of our urban life. So people are discussing QR codes, so I would agree with that. Of course, I'm kidding. I cannot really speak about digital twins and their applicability to our urban life. I think my colleagues would be better experts. But managing big data and digitalization as a whole, these are the areas where we are working actively. And when we are making future plans, environmental plans, social plans, we're also dealing with big data. We are running simulations, trying to see how different decisions would affect the big city economy and its ecosystem. Samek, I wanted to get you back online. Since we're talking about finances, would be interesting to hear about verification. When it comes to green bonds, I'm not the one to say that greenwashing is an important is an important topic when companies pretend to be green but are not in essence green. So how can this be addressed? As a person who is interested in developing green bond market, how would you respond to that?
Thank you, Ryan. A very good question. I think usually for verification purposes, in order to be able to carry this out, and in much of the financing that we do that is innovative, like our results-based financing program, we rely basically on third-party verification, where you commission independent verification of the results so that you can have, if you want, an independent arm's length review of the various achievements that are happening on the ground. But as I mentioned, I mean, for us at the World Bank, this is, I mean, the main focus on green financing is really a signaling, but because what we aspire to is really having a mainstreaming of climate change across all development sectors. So we are not seeking to have, if you will, two parallel tracks of regular financing versus green financing. We are, striving to progress towards having everything becoming the same form of financing, because climate change and environmental sustainability are mainstreamed across all of our development programs. So I think this is the end goal, and independent verification is one of the tools to get there. Thank you.
I think we held a very productive, interesting discussion. I would like to speak the attendees, the speakers who joined us online, Jose Antonio, Samech. It's quite early, and you had a blackout on top of everything. So thank you very much. So this is a round of applause for you. It was fun, it was interesting, and thank you for joining in and for listening to the session. Thank you. Bye-bye.